Hey sports fans, what's up? In this video, we're going to be talking about the rise and fall of one of the NFL's brightest stars in the early 2000s. His rise to fame was even faster than he was on the football field, and his fall from proverbial glory may have been even faster. That NFL star is Michael Vick. Michael Vick went from the NFL's it man and the golden standard as a dual-threat quarterback to someone who was viewed as a threat to society in what seemed like a flash. When news broke about Michael Vick's dogfighting allegations, the initial hope was that Vick wasn't involved, and it was something that the NFL star was clueless about. But after details began flowing in, the narrative went from, is Michael Vick guilty, to, will Michael Vick ever play in the NFL again? Today we're going to explore that rise, that fall, and redemption. But first, if you haven't done so already, do me a favor, click that subscribe button to stay connected to this channel and more content just like this. All done? Perfect. Let's go. Michael Dwayne Vick grew up in Newport News, Virginia, in a rough area that he knew he wanted to get out of from an early age. The area Michael Vick grew up in was filled with drug dealing, drive-by shootings, and other killings. Vick and his young peers quickly looked at sports as a way to escape their crime-ridden neighborhood. In an interview in 2001, Vick told the Newport Daily News that he would go fishing even if the fish weren't biting, just to get away from the violence and stress of living in the projects. When Michael was 3 years old, his dad nicknamed him Bullet for how fast he ran and then began teaching him the fundamentals of football. Mike was a quick study, and soon football became his world. Playing football and spending time with the Boys and Girls Club gave Vick some structure and allowed him to develop his athletic ability that was off the charts by the time he reached high school. In high school, Vick would blossom into a phenomenal quarterback that was pushing defenses by air and on the ground. Vick's mentor, Warwick High School coach Tommy Riemann, would do everything in his power to help Vick stay out of trouble, study for his tests, and stay committed to football. It was his guidance that helped keep Vick off the streets and on the football field long enough for colleges to begin taking notice. When major colleges came for the highly touted recruit out of Virginia, it was Riemann that sold Vick on the idea of staying close to home and attending Virginia Tech. With structure in place at Virginia Tech, in 1998, Vick would leave public housing and attend college, and most people back home already pegged him as a success just for attending college. The problem with staying close to home is that some of the influence that weaved in and out of Vick's life as a youth would stick around during college. As a redshirt freshman in college, it didn't take long for Virginia Tech to know that they had something very special. He rushed for 3 touchdowns in just over a quarter of play, and once given the starting gig, he led the Hokies to an 11-0 season and finished third in the Heisman running. Vick may have finished third, but his popularity was at a blistering high. He would win the ESPY Award as the nation's top athlete and also be featured on the cover of ESPN the magazine. In Vick's second season, he would start out strong, leading the Hokies to a comeback victory against Syracuse at the Carrier Dome, where they hadn't won in almost 15 years, and he made himself a Virginia Tech folk hero before getting hurt the following week against Pittsburgh. His redshirt sophomore year would be marred by injuries, not to mention life off the field was also kind of rough for Vick's family back home, who despite all of his college success were still in public housing. The decision was then made by Vick that he'd need to turn pro to be able to take care of the people back home and those closest to him. Those closest to him also included Vick's entourage from Newport News, many of whom were bad news to the bubbling superstar. By the time Vick declared himself ready to move on from college football, the NFL world had taken notice, and teams were jockeying for position to draft the Virginia Tech quarterback. Michael Vick wasn't just a top pick in the NFL draft. He was viewed as a generational talent with scrambling ability we'd never seen, with a howitzer for a left arm. Meanwhile, the quarterback-needy San Diego Chargers actually held the first pick, but were reportedly turned off by the questionable entourage that was constantly surrounding Vick. The group of buddies from Vick's youth that latched onto him during his college days only grew as soon as Vick declared himself ready for the National Football League. When the Atlanta Falcons traded a king's ransom to move up and select a new face of their franchise, they made Michael Vick the first black quarterback to be selected first overall. After being nagged by injuries in college, the Falcons' main goal was to do whatever they could to keep their quarterback healthy and on the football field. Although Vick had his worrisome entourage with him, he was never viewed as a low-character guy, and he was said to be a great teammate at Va Tech. His transition to the Falcons was a smooth one. The soft-spoken superstar to be, who displayed superhuman ability at the Combine, wasn't only pegged to be the face of the Falcons for years to come, but also the National Football League. While Vick was smiling for interviews and saying all the right things when the cameras were on, behind the scenes, the lifestyle and influences Vick spent his youth playing sports to escape would always be looming. When the ink dried on Vick's 6-year, $62 million contract, he did what many NFL athletes do. He made some expensive purchases. He bought a couple of homes, including a large countryside home and several cars. Back when Vick signed his rookie deal, this was before the rookie wage scale, and the first overall picks, let alone quarterbacks, were still getting paid, especially if they were selected first overall. The contract was a large one for a 20-year-old who only started in 2 games during his rookie year, but showed out of this planet game-breaking ability that made him a dynamic force in college. In year 2, the NFL world would get its first real taste of the NFL's newest darling as Vick took the hapless Falcons and quickly turned them into a playoff contender. His legend got its biggest boon when Vick and the Falcons marched into Lambeau Field and upset the highly favored, Brett Favre-led Green Bay Packers in the first round of the playoffs. Although Vick and company wouldn't make it out of the divisional round, the name Michael Vick was fastly rising to the top of elite NFL quarterbacks. As his popularity grew, so did jersey sales and the demand for Michael Vick. It wasn't long before Madden would place the young quarterback on its cover and the Atlanta Falcons would make a spectacle out of the Michael Vick experience, likening seeing the scrambling quarterback with the cannon for an arm to being at an amusement park. But the Michael Vick experience would begin to be a rocky one, starting when he fractured his right fibula in a preseason game when many analysts had the Falcons as a dark horse Super Bowl contender. He ended up missing 11 games, and he did not get his first start until week 13. Would Vick come back and be cautious after many said that he was scrambling too much? Maybe that was why he had gotten hurt? Would he come back as the same Michael Vick? He'd answer those questions on December 7th by rushing for 141 yards on 14 carries, the third highest total by an NFL quarterback in history. The following season, Vick would return with a vengeance and lead the Falcons to a conference championship where they would again lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. Vick would be named to his second Pro Bowl, and the divisional title would be Atlanta's third since his arrival. In 2006, Vick would have his best statistical season of his young career and became the first quarterback to ever rush for 1,000 yards. Despite the record-setting season, Vick would miss the playoffs and the Falcons would finish 7-9. While the Falcons finished on a down note, they held their heads high in hopes of returning to the top tier of their division, making a run at the Lombardi Trophy during the 2007 season before a bombshell would rock the franchise. Images of dogfighting sites belonging to Michael Vick would be plastered across television screens around the country as one of the NFL's most elusive athletes seemed bound to serve a prison sentence for his involvement in a horrible dogfighting scandal. The friends and entourage that had clung to Vick since his early days in Newport News, Virginia, would be among the 5 others convicted alongside Vick. After pleading guilty, the league suspended Michael Vick indefinitely. The 27-year-old, who was tops in jersey sales and selling out stadiums, would become inmate number 337-65183. The Falcons released Michael Vick, but before coming after $20 million of his signing bonus. After not being able to trade him in 2009, the Falcons released the former number 1 pick. After serving 21 months in prison and almost 2 years from his imprisonment, Vick was signed by the Philadelphia Eagles to a 1-year contract. The idea was Eagles quarterback Donovan McNabb's, the guy who had knocked Vick's Falcons out of the playoffs twice. Vick joined the Eagles as a backup and hardly saw the field in his first year, but he showed glimmers of the old Michael Vick in spot duty. The following year, McNabb would get traded to the Redskins, making Kevin Cobb the starter with a confident Vick waiting in the wings. An injury to Cobb early in the season promoted the man many once considered the hardest man to defend in the league to starter. In his second game as a starter, Vick threw for 3 touchdowns and added another one on the ground. Vick was back, and not just as a rusher, but as a better passer. He would put the league on notice with multiple highlight performances, including a Week 10 Monday night game where Vick combined for 6 touchdowns and over 400 yards. On the night, Vick was dynamite from the first play, connecting with Deshaun Jackson for an 88-yard touchdown. Michael Vick saved the best game of his career for when all of the eyes that had watched his walk of shame all the way through his prison term were watching him in prime time. Michael Vick was again one of the hottest and most feared names in the league. A comeback story that was showing Vick was as tough as the streets he came from. The Eagles, well, they would make the playoffs, but they ended up losing to eventual Super Bowl champion Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. In August of the following season, Vick signed a 6-year, $100 million deal with the Eagles. Vick wouldn't return on the Eagles' investment, starting off the next season 4-8 before winning the final 4 to finish 500 on the season. Vick's play was inconsistent for the next season and riddled with injuries, which created a quarterback controversy with Nick Foles. Andy Reid stuck with Vick, but Vick did little to silence the critics over the next 2 seasons, until finally Vick was replaced by Foles, who played lights out as a starter, going 8-2. Vick's days in Philly were officially numbered, and after a forgettable season as a backup to Geno Smith as a New York Jet, Vick made his way to Pittsburgh and signed with the Steelers to back up Ben Roethlisberger. Steeler faithful were divided with the move, and it caused a backlash, with many saying they could no longer support the team. The team, well, they stuck by Vick, and he got his opportunity in Week 3 when Roethlisberger went down with an injury. Vick played admirably in his absence, completing 44 passes and 2 touchdowns before injuring his hamstring in a win over the Arizona Cardinals. Vick was replaced, and it would be the last time he would take the football field. He retired in 2017 and joined Fox News in 2018 as an analyst with Fox Sports on Fox NFL Kickoff, as well as other FS1 programming. Vick seems to have put his past demons behind him and is a welcome face on Fox. He provides great insight on all things football, where it looks like he's found a successful post-football career, and he's been accepted back into the football community with his mid-2000s scandal long in the rear view. All right, sports fans, that is it for our story on the rise and the fall and the rise again of one of the NFL's most electrifying and polarizing stars, Michael Vick. What did you think about Vick's rise and fall? Have we seen the best of Michael Vick, or is the best of Vick still to come? Let us know by dropping a line down in the comments, and if you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button for me so you can stay connected with our channel and all things football. All right, until next time, sports fans.